with everywhere else too. Boom. All right, so we're live with everywhere else. Like I was telling everybody else that was just joining in, I'm gonna go through. People always ask me about how to restore their rights, and get their Second Amendment right back, or their right to vote back, or whatever else happens if they got a felony at some point and it's been over 8 years after served time. So I want to go through that. I'll start with Florida because obviously that's my home state and it's the one I kind of know the most of. For Florida, for 100% fact, it is 8 years after served time. That's when you can. Why can I not click on the link? It's 8 years after served time, and that's when you can go back to actually get your rights back in the state of Florida. I guess it's not going to work on here, which is very depressing right now. I should have tested that right before I went on live. What's up, everybody? Joining the live right now. We're going to go through some of the state's gun laws and get educated about some of the other things. People that want to know about getting their firearm rights back, if they've lost their Second Amendment right, drop something in the chat about the state that you're in, and we can go through those specifics for you. But for right now, let's just go with Kentucky gun laws, and we'll read off what they got going on in Kentucky. Kentucky is actually a pretty gun-friendly state. They're pretty similar to Texas, in all honesty. So if we're talking about Kentucky, boy, I shouldn't have put this jacket on. It's kind of hot here. Huh? Keep it in moving. Kentucky, there shall issue and permitless carry. Everything is processed by the state police. No license are needed for firearm background checks on private sales. There's no waiting period. There's no firearm registration in the state of Kentucky. A background check is required if you're purchasing from a licensed FFL dealer. It's pretty much the same deal in Florida. If you're trying to purchase from a licensed FFL, you always got to go through the background check. Open carry is legal in Kentucky without a license for anyone that is 18 years of age or older. Remember, everybody go drop a follow so we can get closer to that 10,000 subscriber or follow. So we can get close to the 10,000 followers so we can get the TikTok creator feature. That's what we're trying to get after right now. That's the goal for the week. Get another 700 followers or so, and then we can make these a little bit more interactive, and I can actually show you what I'm looking at. But right now, I can't show you because TikTok limits my features, but that's okay. We'll get there. Open carry is legal in Kentucky. Let's go through some of the key state gun laws that they got going on. For Kentucky, there are no red flag laws in Kentucky, which is kind of nice if you don't like red flag laws. Carrying while using alcohol or prescription medicine. So Kentucky doesn't exactly address that in the statute, but for most places, it's a 0.08 blood alcohol level. If you have anything more than 0.08, you're considered inebriated, and at that point, your judgment is impaired, and you may lose your firearm rights if you do something that is dumb. Sunshine, I appreciate you so much. Thank you. It really does mean a lot to have people interact with me in the chat. So everybody drop your state, ask me a question so I can make this as valuable for you as I possibly can. Like I said, we're not doing any of the AI stuff. We're going to actually drop value in a lot of these lives. Share the live with somebody that you think needs to have their firearm rights restored, or if you know somebody that lost their firearm rights, go ahead and tell them to join over in this live right now so they can get this education real quick. Non-residence permits. So yes, only to members of military and active duty that are stationed in Kentucky can actually get a non-residence permit, but Kentucky is a constitutional carry state. So if you have a license from another state, they will honor it. And then you are allowed to carry there just based off their codified statutes and laws. Permitless carry, constitutional and concealed. You got to be 21 years of age in order to do that. But again, you can open carry at 18 inside Georgia. I was actually thinking about Georgia, so we can bounce over to there real quick too before we even get into Kentucky. So if we're looking at Georgia gun laws, y'all are honestly the wilder South than Florida is. Like, it is just open season inside of Georgia. There shall issue. They're a constitutional carry state. No license, background checks, or firearm registration required when buying from private individuals. Open carry is legal in the state of Georgia. You don't need a license in order to open carry or a concealed carry permit for Georgia state honors. Some areas are off limits, including schools and courthouses. That's pretty much for every state. No state really lets you carry inside of school or a courthouse. That's the quickest way to get a one-way trip to jail. It's not addressed in the constitutional carry bill as of April 12th. Concealed carry is legal for residents of Georgia with a weapon concealed license. They have a WCL. They call it weapon carry license. Any lawful person carry and non-resident with a license permit issued by any other state. There is no firearms training required to obtain. So that's kind of one of the good things about Georgia. You don't need a license in order to obtain the permit. You just got to go to the courthouse, and then they will pretty much issue one as long as you can make that trip down there. 18, with the military, get a concealed carry license in Georgia. No license is needed to carry a handgun in a person's home, vehicle, place of business while fishing or hunting, or unload it in a case. The city of Kennesaw, which is like a very well-known state, they require the head of every household to have a gun. So that is one of the most interesting laws that, or we call them like blue laws, kind of like you're not going to get in trouble for not obeying that law, but it is a blue law and it is codified in the statute. So technically, the head of every household in Kennesaw should have a firearm on them in the household, and that's been the law since 1982. In terms of reciprocity, Governor Kemp signed HB 218 in July, April 12, 2022, recognizing firearms license from all of the states. Holders of a license that expired during COVID state, you have a 120-day period, but obviously we're like 4 years after COVID. Yeah, Kennesaw, Georgia. In Kennesaw, Georgia, the head of every household is required to have a gun. So there has to be a gun inside of Kennesaw. You're technically breaking the law. It's like we call them blue laws. They're just random laws that are on the books. Like some southern states, it might be like Tennessee. The only time you're allowed to beat your wife is Sunday at like 12, like Sunday at like 2 p.m. on the courthouse steps. That's because the way the cities used to be structured is the church would be letting out at 2 p.m. and the courthouse was directly facing. So if you want to beat your wife, you pretty much have to be doing it in public and be shamed by everybody. They call them blue laws. Somewhere in California, you can park an elephant on the street as long as you pay the meter. For random things like that, just small laws that nobody knows about. I think in one state, it's actually illegal to be naked at any point in time in your house. Random blue laws that have random fun facts. I'm a history buff, so I know a lot of just random facts. Brian Kemp signed SB 319 into law permitting constitutional carry in Georgia. So yes, Georgia is a constitutional carry state, and it took effect immediately. Georgia is the Castle Doctrine state and has the stand your ground statute, and there is no duty to retreat in defense of a forcible felony such as rape, armed robbery, or kidnapping. So when it comes to defensive habitation for Georgia, a person is justified in threatening or using force when and to the extent that he or she reasonably believes that such threats or force is necessary to prevent or terminate such other unlawful entry into or attack upon habitation. However, such a person is justified in using deadly force only if the entry is made or attempted in a violent or tumultuous manner. That's a strange word to say, tumultuous. Tumultuous manner for the purpose of assaulting or offering personal violence to any person in the dwelling. So somebody tries to forcefully enter your house and then they try to snatch you out of it. That is a tumultuous manner. Do we have to keep our PPU in the car, glove box, compartment? Let's go to how you must carry, because I didn't quite get to that one yet, but we'll hop on down to it. Store and employee parking lot, key state laws. I swear I scroll past this thing every time, and I never mean to. It's always the hardest thing for me to find. Carry at roadside, carry up in a vehicle. A person is not prohibited by law from possessing a handgun, may carry a weapon openly or concealed without a license in his or her own vehicle, owned or rented. I get that question a lot too. If it's a rented vehicle, how do you have to carry? It's the same thing because it is your dwelling while you're inside of it. In a vehicle you do not own, you must have the permission of the person who legally controls the vehicle. So yeah, they don't really have any like criteria or governance in terms of the condition that you have to carry, just based off what I'm reading here. My golden rule is always put your firearm in a holster if you're going to keep it in the car. Like, it's just the safest thing to do to not put your firearm in the holster. If you go over a speed bump, if the roads are kind of crappy in your area, granted, firearms have drop safety, so they don't just go off by dropping, but there's all kind of small objects in the car. You just don't want anything to be able to get access to that trigger prematurely and then accidentally have a negligent discharge in the car. So that would very much ruin your day. So I say put it in a holster, and then from there, put it anywhere else you want in the car, especially if you're in Georgia. It doesn't look like they have provisions stopping you. So that's your best bet for Georgia in terms of carrying. Can you carry at roadside areas? Yes, you can. In state or national parks, yeah, you can carry inside those. Always be mindful of if those state or national parks has museums, because those are considered federal property, and you're usually not allowed to have federal or guns in federal property. Everyone walks around. Yeah, so you guys can open carry. I'm not a fan of open carry personally, but hey, to each their own. If your state allows it and you want to walk around that way, by all means. But it's a lot of Kia boys that are just active out there in especially in Atlanta, depending on the part of Georgia that you're in. So I personally would not want to do that. Not unless you're going to walk around with like a level 2 or level 3 holster that's going to have some sort of retention, which is just another small tangent that we can go down. Like people who open carry, they usually just want to do it to show force. Ooh, I have a gun. Like I'll be able to defend. In reality, they're probably going to lose that fight anyway, even if they have that gun open carrying. Like I've just seen it too many times. There are officers that open carry and still lose the fight all the time. So I don't really subscribe to open carry personally. And the water boys have them. Who are the water boys? I know about the Kia boys, but who are the water boys in Georgia? Are they like fishermen? Is that what you're referring to? We'll keep going. Can you carry inside of bars? Yes, there's no statute making it illegal to carry your firearm inside of a bar. But again, we want to check that your blood alcohol level. You don't want to get over a 0.08, which I say a 0.08 is typically like 2-ish. Oh, I got to go live on Instagram too. I got to click this. My bad, Instagram. What's up? Now you guys are back. You weren't live before, but now you are. So you guys can see me on Instagram as well. Yeah, you got to tell me about they sell. Oh, yeah, I have seen that. Yeah, I'm always sketchy of that. The water that's actually kind of funny. The water boys are actually they're scheming. They're doing a little bit more than just selling water out there. So that's an interesting fact. So be mindful. I mean, that's another good thing though. Like I remember being in St. Pete and there were just people fighting in the street and like you don't know, so you got to be ready for those situations. I don't like people walking up to my car at all. Like it's people don't even know you walk up to my car. I just hope you're prepared for what's potentially coming next because if you try anything stupid, you're going to win a stupid prize. Carrying possessing hotels, yeah, most hotels will not stop you, and there's nothing in Florida or in Georgia statute that's codified specifically addressing it. Um, as long as I say that property isn't like Disney in Georgia, you're usually good to carry that firearm. If it is anything like Disney, they probably have an FFL explosive license and they can prohibit you from carrying on their property. But for the most part, what they don't know what hurt them, I always say it's easier to ask forgiveness than it is permission. So I just wouldn't tell them personally. It looks like there's something going on with the Instagram live. I hope it can get fixed. I don't actually know what's going on with the Instagram live. It's acting kind of sketchy. But TikTok, y'all are live, and that's where the bulk of most of these people are going to come from. So I appreciate everybody there. Go drop a follow so we can get close to that 10,000 follower. And we can get the TikTok Creator Studio so I can make these lives more interactive for all of you joining. And then go check out my page too because I'm uploading different content about the individual states. Granted, I'm going more in depth and I can answer questions here, but if you need it somewhere else, it's also on the page, and I've done Georgia too. Store in your employer parking lot. No private or public employer, including the state and its political subdivisions, can condition employment upon the agreement that a prospective employee on prohibiting firearms or ammunition in the employee's private-owned motor vehicle. So yeah, there's no employer that can stop you legally from bringing your firearm in your car for protection. Just want to say thank you for everything. I learned a lot when I took your class over a year ago. I appreciate you for taking the class. You probably don't want to say your name on live, but I appreciate you for taking that class. I wish I could remember you specifically by person, but I've taught a lot of people and I kind of got to see your face in order to know exactly who you were. But I deeply, deeply appreciate you. Shout out to you. Hit me up and I'll give you a discount on another class. If you want a private lesson, I'll give you a personal discount. Just DM me. Key state laws: no weapon allowed signs are not enforced inside of Georgia. Red flag laws are a negative inside of Georgia. Non-resident permit is a thing, but it's only offered to military permanently stationed in Georgia. But again, Georgia's constitutional carry, so it doesn't quite matter. You can just carry. I want to know what's happening with the Instagram live. I would like to know what's happening on that side because it doesn't look like it's working. I guess we'll keep it over here. We'll keep it over here, I guess. Then we'll go here and we'll drag that one. Can I not drag it? We're having technical difficulties inside of the live today. Let's close that out. Let's bring this to this. restart the live for a couple places. All right, so now this is back on. I think the Instagram live is now working again. Thank you from Jacksonville. Shout out to you living in Florida. Yeah. Florida, Gunshine State. We have some of the best laws, but we have one of the dumbest governors I've ever seen, honestly. Well, I won't say the dumbest governor, but we definitely don't have the smartest governor, should I say. And if he's watching, which I know he's not, oh well. Public access to concealed carry registry in Georgia is a negative. No one has access to the public concealed registry. What's up, Instagram is now working. Let me know if y'all can hear me. Drop what state you're a part of. Most of you are my friends, so you're probably in Florida. But drop your state, ask your gun question, and I'll answer them. Yeah, we do. Yeah, more Florida residents in here. Shout out to all my Florida residents. Preemption, yes. Georgia has preemption, so different local municipalities can regulate different laws based off their county or jurisdiction, depending on how they feel it should go in their jurisdiction. There's no definition of brandishing, but Georgia found, however, a person commits an offense of disorderly conduct when such person acts in a violent or tumultuous manner. They love that word, tumultuous manner, towards another person, whereby such person is placed in reasonable fear of safety for such person's life, limb, health, or act of violent or tumultuous manner towards another person, whereby the property of such person is placed in danger of being damaged or destroyed. So it pretty much just goes to the same thing. Like, even if you can open carry in Georgia, if you pull that firearm out of the holster, out of the sheath, whatever you're keeping it in attempts to intimidate somebody, you're going to get a disorderly. It looks like they'll charge you with disorderly. They can also slap on menacing. They can also slap on improper exhibition of a firearm. So you can get a couple different charges for trying to brandish a firearm and intimidate somebody into backing off. There's no duty to inform officers that you have a concealed carry inside of Georgia or that you're carrying a firearm. Granted, if they ask, I say always answer them honestly, but it looks like you have no duty to do that. Even if they do ask, you can pretty much say, I don't answer any questions. You always want to be careful answering questions from the police. You want to keep, I say, anytime you get pulled over by the police, keep the business about what it's about. If it's a traffic stop, let it stay about a traffic stop. Don't start deviating when they start asking other questions. Just know that they are now starting to do their investigation. Once they start asking more questions outside of the scope of what the traffic stop is, it has nothing to do. Like if they say, oh, I smell something in the car, great, get a canine. And that's illegal. That's the thing you're legally allowed to do. If they pulled you over for speeding and then they try to escalate it to a drug stop and they don't see shake, they don't see actual blood. And again, this doesn't apply to every state, but it's just a general concept. At least for Florida, they don't see shake, they don't see blood, they don't see any type of actual contraband. You can request that they get a canine unit, and if that canine unit takes longer to come than it would to fulfill the actual traffic stop, technically they have to let you go because it was a traffic stop about one thing and they tried to escalate it to a different thing, and that doesn't quite fit inside most of the statutes. So always remember that the police are not really your friend. They're there to do a job, and you should be mindful of that. Yep. So when it comes to drinking, even though you can go inside a bar inside of Georgia, that blood alcohol level of 0.08 or greater, you are considered impaired. Your judgment will be not the same. So if you end up getting into a situation where you had to draw your firearm or that you were the aggressor in it, there's a great chance that you may be found guilty of something. Granted, if you had reasonable defense and articulation of how life was in danger, there's a great chance you get by with it. So there's not much worries on that front. Handgun registration is a negative inside of Georgia. Minimum age to possess is 18 years old. You can open carry at that point. Permit to purchase is a negative. Background checks for private gun sales is a negative. If you have the Georgia concealed carry license, you are exempt from the background check. So that is a benefit you guys get. We don't get that here in Florida. Everybody gets a background check unless it's a private sale. Waiting periods, there is no waiting period, which maybe there should be in Georgia just for some of the people. But granted, law-abiding citizens typically don't need a waiting period just because they're not into that activity. But granted, you don't quite know what somebody's into before they're actually into it. So the waiting periods can sometimes be beneficial. I'm not fully behind them, but I do understand how they can help. Possession of a handgun on private property. Yes, if you're on private property, you're allowed to possess. You don't need any type of legal law, or you don't need any type of permit. If you're in Georgia, if you're on private property, you're more than welcome to carry. Let's go into some of the actual use of force and deadly force laws when it comes to Georgia, because that's kind of the meat of self-defense. So Georgia's a castle doctrine state with stand your ground and no duty to retreat from forcible felonies. Oh, we were just talking about this. So if somebody tries to basically enter your home and forcefully take you out in a tumultuous manner, there's that word again. It is, you have the right to use force or even deadly force to protect yourself, especially if you feel like they're going to do great bodily harm to you. That force is used against another person who is not a member of the family or household and is unlawfully, forcefully enters or has entered the residence. So if it is somebody that is not a resident of that household normally and they try to forcefully enter, you could use force or even deadly force to justify defending your dwelling or habitation, as they call it in Georgia in that instance. The person using such force and reason believes that the entry is made or attempted for the purpose of committing a felony. So again, if you have somebody that's just trying to enter your home and you know that their whole purpose is to steal, I mean, burglary or robbery or home invasion is a felony right off the rip. So they've already fulfilled the first criteria. I was told here in Florida that is you are your property, you can open carry. Is that true? Yes. If you are on private property in Florida, you are allowed to open carry. That goes for businesses, for your home. It's just the moment you step off of your property, then you're not allowed to open carry. But on private property, you're allowed to open carry. While fishing or hunting, you're allowed to open carry. In what's the other one? So while fishing or hunting or camping. If you're camping, you're also allowed to open carry. That's where people kind of get confused, or we're like, Florida is, we try to go back and forth between being a constitutional carry state and a permitless carry state. We're technically still a permitless carry state and not constitutional because we don't allow open carry just anywhere. It's only in specific instances that you're allowed to open carry. So that's what keeps us as a permitless carry state, not a full constitutional carry state. Defensive property other than habitation. A person is justified in threatening or using force when and to the extent that he reasonably believes that such threat of force is necessary to prevent or terminate trespass on or torturous or criminal interference with real property other than habitation of personal property, lawfully in possession or in the possession of a member of his immediate family belonging to a person whose property he has a legal duty to protect. So let me read that again just to make sure I understand it. A person is justified in threatening or using force when to the extent that a reason believes that it's necessary. So when it comes to property, if it's like a car, if somebody's trying to steal your car, you can't just go and draw down your gun on them, but you can go hands-on with them and throw them away from your car if you would like. You just can't go pulling your firearm out and threatening and use assault with a deadly weapon as justification to try to protect your property. That isn't allowed. So assault with a deadly weapon isn't allowed, but you can go hands-on with them and stop them from getting in your car. So if you catch a Kia Boy in Georgia in your car, you're allowed to go hands-on with them. Granted, that Kia Boy probably has a gun, so you might not want to go hands-on with them. Prepare yourself for that. Going hands-on it's an option, but it's not always the best option because it puts you in such a close proximity where, like, if you do have a firearm on you, you now have to create distance between you and them, and 5 feet of distance is not enough. You need at least 6 to 7 feet of distance to be able to actually get some accurate rounds on target and have them not be quite up on you. Honestly, I'd even say 10 feet. 10 feet of distance is really what you need in order to be able to operate anything inside of 10 feet. It takes about 1 to 2 seconds to close that distance real quick. So careful going hands-on, although it is a good option if you want to avoid using deadly force. The use of deadly force, which is intended to or likely to cause death or great bodily harm, to prevent trespass on or other tortious or criminal interference with real property other than habitation or personal property is only justified if it is necessary to prevent the commission of a forcible felony. So you can use deadly force to stop trespass if you know that person. Essentially, if it is robbery, aggravated robbery with a deadly weapon, you can use deadly force to stop them from trespassing or interfering with your property in that instance because it's a forcible felony that justifies protection under that circumstance. Going to some other things, you can carry pepper spray. There's no magazine limits. There's no ammo restrictions, which is crazy. Most states prohibit, armor-piercing rounds, so there are no, you can't use armor-piercing rounds, you can't use incendiary rounds, but Georgia doesn't have a law that prohibits that, which, again, is crazy, and I hope the hooligans don't get a hold of that because if they do, it might not fare very well. Constitutional carry is a yes. Open carry is permitted. Gun license, tasers are allowed. Minimum age to carry. You must be 21 and years older to get a concealed carry license or 18 and a member of the military. So at 18, if you're a member of the military, you can get your concealed carry license in Georgia. Granted, your constitutional carry, so you can open carry anyway. All right, that looks like it's most of Georgia. For everybody entering the chat, to go ahead and drop a follow so we can get closer to that 10,000 followers, so we can make these lives more interactive and more educational. You can see some of the information I'm looking at in real time. Your driver's license is not linked to your concealed carry inside of Georgia. So that's also a nice thing. So when you give an officer your license, they will not be notified that you are a concealed carry holder. Some states they are. In Georgia, in Florida, it's not linked to your license either. Granted, you can get it placed on your license, and I don't think that links it still, but it may. But naturally, it is not linked in the state of Florida. Let's move over to Kentucky. Good old Kentucky. Open carry, it's pretty similar. Open carry is legal in Kentucky without a license for anyone 18 years or older who is not prohibited from possessing a firearm. Some areas are off limits, including businesses primarily devoted to the sale of alcohol. So bars pretty much are off limits inside of Kentucky, which, you know, I don't disagree with. I don't think you should really go into a bar with a firearm. It's just asking for bad things to happen. Granted, I do think you should be able to go to a restaurant and enjoy a beer or whatever, and not be prohibited from carrying a firearm in there just because you're going to legally drink. There is a grace that you can have in there to still enjoy and not overindulge, basically. Use of force in defense of self or third person in the state of Kentucky. The use of physical force by a person is justified when the person believes that such force is necessary to protect the person or third party against the use of immediate or unlawful physical force. The use of deadly force by a person is justified only when the person believes that such force is necessary to protect himself or a third party against immediate death, serious physical injury, kidnapping, sexual intercourse compelled by force or threat, or other felonies involving the use of such force. So when you're in Kentucky, anytime you see pretty much any forcible felony happens, especially if it's a sex crime, you are allowed to defend that third person with force or even deadly force in those situations. Defense of dwelling, a residence, or occupied vehicle. A person is presumed to have a reasonable fear of immediate peril of death or great bodily harm when using deadly force to prevent or terminate such others' unlawful entry upon a person's dwelling, residence, or occupied vehicle, or an attempted to remove another against the person's will from the dwelling, residence, or occupied vehicle. So we've seen videos of people. I don't know where this video was exactly taking place at, but they were at a gas station. Arguments going on back and forth. Dude decides he's going to walk up to the driver door, open it. He may have threw a punch in there. I can't remember exactly. That's why we need those. That's why we need to follow, so we can play some of these videos and make these lives a little bit more entertaining than just me sitting here talking. Even though y'all probably love to sit here and look at me, there's more information I can give you to make these a lot more interactive and a lot more educational. But the guy ended up taking a couple rounds because he opened that door and tried to forcibly remove them. And again, I don't know the state, but if they were in Kentucky, if they were in Florida, it'd be a justified use of self-defense because the car, while inside of it, is considered your dwelling. It's an extension of the home, and you do have a right to protect yourself in there. And if somebody unlawfully opens your door, you can assume what is coming next from that point forward. Protection of property. The use of physical force by a person is justified when the person believes that such force is immediately necessary to prevent the commission of a criminal trespass, robbery, burglary, or any other felony involving the use of force in a dwelling, building, or upon real property in his or her possession, or in the possession of another for whose property or protection one acts. Theft, criminal mischief, or unlawful taking of tangible, movable property in his or her possession, or in the possession of another person for whose protection one acts. So it's interesting. Kentucky does have a very similar verbiage to Texas when they quote movable property. Like in Florida, movable property could be your car or anything that is outside of you. You have no right to use deadly force in protection of that. But in states like Kentucky and in states like Texas, you do have a right to protect physical movable property because the statute says so. So if somebody's trying to steal your car, you are allowed to use force to try to stop them from stealing your car. The use of deadly force in this same situation, the use of deadly force by a defendant upon another person is justified only when the defendant believes that the person against whom such force is used is attempting to dispose him or her of the dwelling otherwise than under the claim of right to its possession, committing or attempting to commit burglary, robbery, or any other forcible felony, committing or attempting to commit arson of a dwelling or other building in the possession of, in his or her possession. So I always say, anytime flames are introduced to a situation, and it really doesn't matter in what way, if someone has a Molotov cocktail, gasoline with a match, or firework maliciously pointed at your house, it does justify using self-defense even at a distance. And I say in Florida, that's one of the only times that you can really protect property outside, is if somebody introduces fire in any way, because you can articulate easy if it's the heat of summer and the grass is pretty dead outside, that if someone introduces a spark that causes this grass to catch on fire, there's a great chance that the entire yard can be engulfed before there's anything else that you can do about it. So even at a distance, if I got an acre and a half of land between my driveway and my house, or between the edge of my property and my house, and I see somebody, with a Molotov cocktail, essentially, I can reach out at distance and touch them, because I can articulate that, hey, this is a wildlife area. Technically, it's a lot of grass, a lot of trees. There's a lot of dead shrubbery that could fuel a fire and cause it to spread extremely quickly. And especially if you have a wooden gate, I mean, that's just another plain fact. The gate is 100% dead wood, and it is primed to catch on fire. So you can do that in Florida when it comes to arson. Self-defense, Kentucky is a Castle Doctrine state and has a stand your ground. And they are also a no duty to retreat. A person who is not engaged in any unlawful activity and who is attacked in other places where he or she has a right to be has no duty to retreat, and has the right to stand his or her ground and meet force with force, including deadly force, if he or she reasonably believes it is necessary to prevent death or great bodily harm to himself, herself, or another, or to prevent the commission of a felony involving the use of force. So Kentucky's self-defense laws are pretty similar to Florida. As long as you have a right to be where you are and you're not breaking any laws, you're allowed to protect yourself against any attacker who decides that they are going to attack you in that moment, as long as you can articulate how they were putting your life in danger. Again, a lot of times you can't just escalate it to deadly force right away. You want to take your time and go through the proper escalation process. While you have no duty to retreat, I always tell people retreating is sometimes the cheapest option. Like, the moment you go to pull that trigger, it only becomes more complicated and more expensive from that point forward. You got the investigation with the police, you got the lawyer fees to pay. I mean, ideally, in the best situation is that they clear you on the scene and they don't even take you to the station to interview you. And a lot of times that can happen if you have body camera, which is always, I won't say body camera because most civilians don't wear body cams, but if you have footage of some sort, even if it's from the business, it just makes it easier on you as the individual, because now you have video to show what happened. When I was on a team where we had to use deadly force against an individual and we did discharge at him, their body cams, because I wasn't there for the situation, their body cams allowed my body to be cleared on the scene. Like, police pretty much told him before it was even done being wrapped up that he was going to be cleared, because it was clear justification. The guy that needed medical attention and that they apprehended eventually had 3 felony warrants out, or at least 3 felony charges against him. He wasn't even allowed to be in possession of a firearm at the time. And so it made it easier for him to get cleared in that situation. But a lot of time that doesn't happen. Like we saw with another prime example is in Chicago, when the dude punched that woman inside of that restaurant. Initially they took him to jail on attempted murder charges or unlawful discharge, whatever it was in that situation. But because the video surfaced from whoever, it was clearly seen that self-defense was justified in that situation, because this is a 200 plus pound man that is attacking a woman, an older woman who does not have the same physical strength to be able to defend herself back. Her son did the best thing he knows how, because he's also a teenager. He does not have the physical strength to match this male. So he went, grabbed the thing, and discharged. And initially they tried to charge them, but then the charges were dropped later on. Some water. Justification in criminal and civil immunity, which is a nice thing to have, because a lot of states don't have criminal and civil immunity, especially to have criminal and civil. Some states will have civil immunity, but not criminal and civil. So a person who uses permitted force is justified in using such force and is immune from criminal prosecution and civil action unless the person against whom the force was used is a peace officer. So basically how that works is, like in the state of Florida, to give it a comparison, if you discharge at somebody and let's say you used a Full Metal Jacket being negligent and that round went through them and hit somebody else, mother, daughter, somebody on the other end, that family who was not involved in that situation can civilly sue you for a wrongful death. But if you were in Kentucky they say, no, you have civil immunity from that. That family is not allowed to sue you. Collateral damage happened. You were protecting your life. Sometimes you can't help it. But that's also why we recommend using hollow point rounds. And that's why I deeply disagree with New Jersey prohibiting the use of hollow point rounds for self-protection. But yeah, but even with, hollow point rounds, let's say you dump 5 and you only hit 2, those 3 rounds that are unaccounted for, if it did touch somebody else and you're inside of Kentucky, again, criminally and civilly, you would be immune, which is a very nice cushion to have for your defense. Chemical spray. Yeah, chemical spray. There's no statute prohibiting a purchase of chemical spray. There's no age restriction on it. There's no magazine limits. Permitless carry is a thing. Permitless carry is a thing, and open carry is a thing without a license, which makes them constitutional carry. Gun permits are shall issue. Every state is a shall issue. Weapons allowed according to Kentucky State Police. Other items covered under the license include any knife other than an ordinary pocket or hunting knife, a nightstick or club, blackjack, slapjack, nunchucks, shuriken. What is this, Naruto? And artificial knuckles. So, they're going full out in Kentucky. Granted, we also have the same thing. Brass knuckles, artificial knuckles are prohibited in the state of Florida. I'm curious. I don't know off the top of my head if having the concealed carry license allows you to carry brass knuckles, but I would assume not. And if you use them in self-defense, there's a great chance you would end up doing some time or be penalized simply for the fact of it can be seen as excessive force using them. So, but in Kentucky, they don't quite care. Ammo restrictions, armor-piercing rounds. So again, most states prohibit armor-piercing rounds, but for some reason, Georgia doesn't want to prohibit them. It's their choice by all means, but you should protect the police more by having a prohibition on armor-piercing rounds. And if you catch somebody with them, they shouldn't really be allowed to have them. Granted, I don't quite care, but as security, I would also very much like people to not be using armor-piercing rounds because I paid a lot of money for that, for those plates. And for you to use a green tip or you use a 5.7 round against it and it goes straight through, I'd be very pissed on that day. Carry at roadside stops in Kentucky is a yes. Carry at state or national parks, yes, without a license for anyone 21 years of older, otherwise able to lawfully possess a firearm in national parks. Storing a vehicle in the parking lot, no person including but not limited to an employer or otherwise owner, leasee, or occupant of real property shall prohibit any person who legally is entitled to possess a firearm from possessing one inside of their car on the property. So that's a thing in like in DC, there's a lot of places that you're not allowed to possess in the parking lot. Granted, DC has a lot of government buildings, so that's kind of why they govern in that way. Carry in a vehicle, yes, without a license for anyone at least 21 years or older, otherwise able to lawfully possess. Kentucky allows any person at least 18 years or older to possess a loaded or unloaded firearm in a vehicle in an enclosed container, compartment, or storage space installed as originally equipped in the motor vehicle. So center console, glove compartment is what they're referring to. By its manufacturer, including but not limited to glove compartment, center console, or seat pocket, regardless of whether said enclosed container, storage space, or compartment is locked, unlocked, or does not have a locking mechanism. So that's a very specific thing that they quoted in there, because I had a friend in Florida who had to fight a third-degree felony possession charge because his firearm was in the seat pocket of his passenger seat. And technically, that is not securely encased, and it is readily accessible, and that is against the law here, technically. But in Kentucky, they specifically specify that you can basically keep it in that seat pocket if you want to, and it does not have to be in a locked container, and it doesn't have to be specifically locked. So it's nice that they actually quote that specifically. Edit carry possession in hotels. Yes, I always say with hotels, so you cannot open carry, but you are allowed to conceal carry in hotels, and they cannot prohibit you. If carrying concealed weapons is prohibited, however, facilities renting, leasing are specifically prohibited from restricting concealed carry. The individual's hotels should be contained to inquire its concealed carry policy. So yeah, when it comes to hotels, I always say it's easier to ask forgiveness than it is to ask permission. They don't open carry inside the hotel, because then they'll obviously know concealed carry, and then they won't know. And then they would have to actually review their concealed carry policy to check if it's in accordance with state law to actually be able to prohibit you from carrying inside of there. Granted, there is a further rabbit hole we can go down with that one, but we're just going to keep trucking along today. There are no red flag laws in Kentucky. Carrying while using alcohol, it's not addressed in the statute, but I always say, and most other states also quote, so we'll just call it common law, which is not common law because it's not in the Commonwealth area, but 0.08 blood alcohol level is what you want to avoid being above. You don't want to get your blood alcohol level more than that when you're carrying your firearm. And honestly, any state, any place, because your impairment becomes judged, if you have a temper, maybe your temper goes up a little bit more, so you want to avoid doing that. You don't want to have a blood alcohol level greater than 0.08. But if you're in Texas, like my big bro that just joined on Instagram, if you're still here, what's up with you? You're allowed to be drunk on your property and have a firearm on you. No one cares in Texas. You just can't do it in public. Public access to concealed carry registry is a negative inside of Kentucky. The regular public does not have access to that concealed carry registry like some other states. There is no duty to inform law enforcement officers that you're carrying a concealed firearm in Kentucky unless the officer asks. So that's very similar to Florida. You don't have a right to tell, but if somebody asks, or if the officer asks, you do have to answer them honestly if you do have one or not. I don't know what the repercussion is for not answering, but it could just very well be lying to a police officer. And again, that's a charge right there. So answer them honestly when they ask. No weapons allowed signs are not enforced unless they are posted on property that is specifically mentioned in state law of being off limits. So my golden rule when it comes to no guns allowed signs, if I see no guns allowed and I see statute and numbers under it, for Florida, 79006, U.S. Title Code 18776, if I see any of those under it, I got to respect it as law. Yeah, man, we trying to out here. We trying to do it out here. Trying to do all 50 states, make this known, take this business a little bit bigger. I feel like we've been in a stalemate for like the last 2 years, but we pop it now. So yeah, any gun law, any statutes that have numbers under them, U.S. Title Code, they don't quote those specific statute numbers in here. But if you see numbers under that no guns allowed sign, respect it as law. Don't go in. And if you do decide to go in, just be prepared for the consequences that come afterwards because you broke the law in that situation. But again, if you're doing concealed carry right, they shouldn't know. And God forbid there was a mass incident that decided to happen there, you're not going to catch a charge for having a possession inside of that place. They'll drop that charge, and as long as you protected life in that situation, it's a great chance you're going to get off with the case inside of court because you protected life. So if you're concealed carrying, nobody should know if you're doing it right anyway. Preemption, states do have preemption inside of Kentucky, meaning individual municipalities are authorized to prohibit or limit where you can carry based off of different circumstances in their jurisdiction. Brandishing, there's no definition of brandishing. Most states don't have a definition of brandishing, but from what we see, brandishing was found in Kentucky. However, a person is guilty of disorderly conduct in the second degree when in public and with intent to cause public inconvenience, annoyance, alarm, or wantonly creating a risk thereof. He engages in fighting or a violent, tumultuous manner. So if you were fighting, especially if you were like instigating the fight and then you decided to bring it out, they're going to charge you with disorderly in the second degree. If they want to be a menace for the day, they're going to charge you with menacing. They'll charge you with improper exhibition, depending on if the muzzle of that firearm actually swept anybody and they can articulate and they have video of it. They might also try to charge you with assault with a deadly weapon. So you want to be mindful of those charges. You don't want to catch one. Your driver's license is linked to your concealed carry license inside of Kentucky, but it's permitless and constitutional carry. So if you don't have one, you're good. And remember, there is no duty to inform. So if you don't want the officers to know, I wouldn't get the concealed carry license. Granted, when you travel out of state, the concealed carry license will benefit you because just because Kentucky is constitutional carry does not mean, Wyoming is constitutional carry. So if you want to carry in Wyoming, assuming you had reciprocity in Kentucky, you would need that concealed carry permit. Background checks for private gun sales are a negative. Gun licenses are exempt from background checks. So another benefit of having the license inside of Kentucky, if you have that license, you don't have to go through the background check, which I don't know about Kentucky, but I know in Florida, background checks can take forever, especially on gun show weekends. It's like the state knows and does it on purpose. Well, they'll put 2 people in the office on a gun show weekend that are running background checks for the entire state. And I get it. People are off. It's the weekend. They don't want to put extra hours in just for people that want to go and buy guns. But gun sales are happening every single day all over the state, and we just need more people. So, yeah, be mindful of that. In Kentucky, having that CCW will actually benefit you in there by bypassing that background check. There's no waiting period. There's no handgun registration like we already mentioned. Possession on private property. Yes, permitless carry is allowed in Kentucky for anyone legally entitled to carry firearms on private property. Have fun. Do what you want. Be safe with it, though. Permit to purchase is a negative. You don't need a permit to purchase in Kentucky. And those are mostly Kentucky state laws. What's up to everybody in the chat on TikTok? I appreciate y'all for joining. Go ahead, drop what state or drop your gun question, and we will try to answer it as best we can. Yep, ask any of your questions, and we'll try to answer it as best we can on this live and go in depth. But if there are no questions, I'm just going to keep trucking along. I think we're going to go to Mississippi. Let's keep it in the South real quick before we head over to West Virginia. And West Virginia. Mississippi is a shall issue state. Side note, before I even go here, I am probably going to end up doing some Call of Duty live later on today. So I think I can only do it on mobile because I don't have a console. Actually, I do. So maybe I'll figure out how to hook that up for later on today. And then you guys can play against me in Call of Duty and see if my skills translate to the actual game. Probably not, because it's nothing that's similar, but we're going to try to do our best anyway. Mississippi shall issue permitless carry, constitutional carry state. There's no permit or background checks or firearm registration required when buying privately. A background check is required when you purchase from an FFL. Naturally, it's the same thing in Florida. If you purchase from an FFL, you do have to go through that background check. Open carry is legal in Mississippi without a permit for anybody that's 18 years or older. With several restrictions, including the firearm be carried in a holster, sheath, or scabbard that is at least partially visible above clothing. So you do have to, keep it somewhat visible when you're open carrying like that. Clothing anywhere where the guns are not otherwise prohibited. Some areas are off limit, like schools and bars. So Mississippi is not a place that wants you to really be in a bar with your open carry. Concealed carry is legal without a permit for anyone who can legally possess a firearm as long as the handgun is carried in a holster or sheath. Mississippi statutes don't address the minimum age for permitless concealed carry, but according to the Department of Safety, they generally require you to be 21 years of age. For reciprocity reasons, 2 types of permits are still available. And it would be, what's up to everybody in Instagram? I know it's a much smaller group on there, but I appreciate all of y'all for just tuning in, even if it's for only 3 seconds. Still available, standard fire permits, and SFP. So yeah, you can still get different types of licensing inside of Mississippi if you want to. But again, they are permitless carry if you're 21 years of age or older. In terms of reciprocity, since Mississippi is permitless carry, a person who can legally possess a firearm may carry a concealed firearm on his or her person without a license or permit. So yeah, when you're going to Mississippi, they will. It's not necessarily that they honor every other state's permits. They just don't really care as long as you're a law-abiding citizen and you have a valid U.S. license or U.S. identification card. You will be allowed to carry in Mississippi, concealed carry or open carry without a permit. And the same thing goes for Florida. As long as you have a valid license from your state that IDs you, you are allowed to carry in Florida permitlessly. We are concealed carry, though. We do not allow open carry. So be mindful of that. If you open carry, you need to either be on private property, hunting, fishing, or camping in those instances. Mississippi is a castle doctrine state and has a stand your ground law. A person who is not the initial aggressor and is not engaged in unlawful activity shall have no duty to retreat before using deadly force if the person in the place is in a place where the person has a right to be. So they're pretty much just like every other place. Like, as long as you have a right to be there and you're not breaking any laws, you are allowed to open carry there, or you are allowed to use defense and stand your ground, and you have no duty to retreat in those instances. Duty to retreat states a lot of time, like New Jersey, when I was reading it yesterday, if somebody's essentially robbing you and you are able to basically give over your belongings that they are trying to take, you're almost obligated to give them up before you're allowed to protect yourself and defend yourself and potentially use force or deadly force against them. I don't know what those little gift things mean. Somebody on TikTok may have to educate me on like what the gifts mean. Like, is there a physical thing or is it just like a little badge? I don't really know what those things are. Justifiable homicide, which is a very interesting way to put it. Homicide may be justified in the following cases in the state of Mississippi: when committed by a person in resisting being killed, resisting a felony upon the person, which is important to note because a felony and a forcible felony aren't the same things. You can be that would be a misdemeanor. There can be felony charges that aren't forcible felonies, like robbery, aggravated assault, kidnapping, carjacking, things like that are forcible felonies. But just regular felonies, obviously, could be felony drug possession, felony robbery without an intent, without a weapon. Those are felonies. So in Mississippi, you can have justifiable homicide against felonies, which is a very important distinction to make. Felony upon the person or in any dwelling, vehicle, place of business, place of employment, or in the immediate presence thereof in which a person shall be. So if you're in a business, I don't know what state that was. It may have been California, where we saw those two guys basically come in with masks. They stood at the cashier guy and he's like, "Take your mask off. Like, what are y'all doing?" And then they tried to jump over the counter. He used scissors to defend himself in that situation and the business. It would be justified if he was in Mississippi, just based off the verbiage of that statute. But I don't remember what state he was in specifically. When it comes to a dwelling means a building or conveyance, which means car, or any kind that has a roof over it, whether the building or conveyance is temporary or permanent, mobile or immobile, including a tenant that is designated, that is designed to be occupied by people lodging therein at night, including any porch. So they are very detailed in their use, in their description of a dwelling, because dwelling in Florida State, we basically consider it inside of the home. I would say through the threshold, that is considered your dwelling. If somebody crosses in the garage, that is considered your dwelling. The porch is a little sketchier because it's not quite your dwelling, because they haven't entered the threshold inside of your home. I even had an officer years ago tell us to, like, if it really gets down and like they keep coming to your house, because we have people coming in just doing weird, or coming by doing weird stuff, it's like, bring them inside, make them cross the threshold. And once they cross the threshold, it becomes a different articulation of what's going down and what's happening. But in Mississippi, they specifically say anything that basically has a roof over it. So if you're on your porch and it has a roof over it, that is still considered your dwelling. In New Jersey, the dwelling basically extended again to inside the threshold of your door. But if you were and you had no duty to retreat as long as you were inside of your dwelling in that threshold. But the moment you crossed out, and let's say you were in the hallway, then it became different. And now you did have a duty to try to retreat first before you are justified in standing, or I won't say standing your ground for New Jersey, because they don't have a stand your ground law. But in New Jersey, if you were in the hallway of your apartment building, you don't have the same laws and protections to use force or deadly force to protect yourself as you would if you were in the threshold of your dwelling. So Mississippi actually does a really good job at detailing those different things. And then lodging therein at night, that is essentially referring to hotels. If somebody's trying to attack you at a hotel and you are lodging there at night, you do have the right to defend yourself in that instance. The statute provides that a person acting in justifiable self-defense shall have similar presumptions in civil cases and immune from civil suits if found not guilty in criminal proceedings. I actually really like Mississippi gun laws. Like, they actually maybe have some of the best gun laws out there in terms of their description and their how in-depth they go with their verbiage. And then they also give you immunity from civil liability as long as you are found to be not guilty on a criminal proceeding. Some states, like, who do we just read? I forgot who we just read. Kentucky offered you criminal and civil liability or immunity. Mississippi only offers you civil immunity if you're found not guilty. And then if you're found not guilty, obviously there's no criminal charges. But if, God forbid, in discharging, somebody else did catch a round that you didn't intend, as long as you're found not guilty in your justifiable use of self-defense, you would be okay in that situation. And you wouldn't be able to get a wrongful death suit that will come on the back end. I always tell people when I teach my civil care class, there are two sides to it. There's the criminal side and there's the civil side. The criminal side wants time. The civil side wants money. You can beat a case criminally, like in Florida. You can beat a case criminally. That does not mean that you beat the case civilly. So in the situation I gave where the team I was on had to discharge their weapon at somebody to stop the guy pointed the weapon at a crowd that had our teammates in it, and it put life in danger, and that's our threshold. So teammate made the decision. Technically, that individual could have come back and tried to sue my buddy on the civil side for, I don't know, medical charges or just anything on the civil side. They make all kinds of stuff up on the civil side. They can call it, say, emotional damage, therapy, this and that. Civil side is just a whole different ball game. So in Florida, just because you beat it criminally doesn't mean you beat it civilly. In Mississippi, if you beat it criminally, you beat it civilly as well. So that's actually a very nice cushion for your defense if you have to use self-defense. Chemical spray, yeah, those are allowed. There's no statute prohibiting you. There's no magazine limits. There's no ammunition restrictions. So incendiary rounds are a legal thing there. To each their own. I don't judge. Permit to carry is at 18. Without a permit, I'm sorry. So you can carry without a permit. At 18, you can open carry in Mississippi. Weapons other than handguns, yes, you can carry a stun gun or a concealed handgun with a concealed carry permit. So that's very different. Most states only allow you to conceal carry a handgun, but in this instance, you can carry a stun gun also. Stun guns are honestly, like, some people want to use them. I've watched them be deployed so many times, and if you don't get both prongs to stick in the person, they're either going to get only a second, like a 3-second shock, or they won't get a shock at all, and they'll just be able to rip it out of themselves. So stun guns are good in instances, but like if you're not an officer that's going to go hands-on and potentially detain them afterwards, don't get a stun gun. It's just not very much worth it. But if you're not gun friendly and you don't want to take it there, I do understand, to each their own, like I said. But stun guns are not always effective when it comes to discharging them and getting an actual lockup out of the person. Permitless carry, yes, Mississippi is permitless carry. We already been talking about that. Let's go to some of the key state laws. There is a no duty to inform an officer that you have a concealed carry on you in the state of Mississippi. There are no red flag laws. Carrying while using alcohol is not addressed in the state statutes, but again, we call it 0.08 over the legal limit. You don't want to be more than 0.08 over the legal limit, so I say have 2 drinks and then call it quits at that point. What's up, everybody that is in the chat or joining the chat or that are new to the chats? Give me a follow so we can make it to 10K so I can share some of this information. And I think the next progression that we're going to go to is we'll also start watching some body cam footage from different officers and see if they were legally in their right to use force, deadly force, or even in their detention of an individual. And a lot of the instances that they did. So that's where I want to take this next, is doing actual body cam review live. But in order to do that, I need y'all to follow so I can actually get to that 10K mark on TikTok and be able to do more inside of the Creative Studio. Non-resident permitting. Yes, you can get a permit in Mississippi for non-residents. Applicant must have a valid permit from other states, be active duty of the military station or in Mississippi, or be retired law enforcement. Officer established in residency in the state. If the applicant is a member of the military between the ages of 18 and 21, he or she must have a valid Mississippi driver's license or ID card issued by the Department of Public Safety. But again, Mississippi is constitutional carry. So if you have a license from your state, they'll honor it. But honestly, you don't really need it because they'll just allow you to carry as long as you're a law-abiding citizen. Public access to concealed carry registry is a negative. Your driver's license is linked to your concealed carry inside of Mississippi. So if you don't want the officers to know when they run your license that you are a gun holder, do not let them, don't get the permit then. And I don't think Mississippi isn't really one of those states where you get a lot of reciprocity from other states. Like, if I had to go check it out here, yeah, you don't get a plethora more of states. The only states that really are worth getting the concealed carry license there is Utah, Arizona, Florida, even, because Florida does have a lot of reciprocity with a lot of other states besides the West Coast and some of those states in the north and then the New England type states. But having a Utah license is actually, like, if there's another state's license you're going to get, go get a Utah license because it's pretty much good in every state across the country. We're going to keep going. No weapons allowed signs are enforced. So the carrying of a stun gun, concealed pistol, or revolver may be disallowed in any place in the discretion of the person or entity exercising control over the location by posting a sign stating carrying of a pistol or revolver is prohibited. Enhanced carry pistol holders may carry a concealed handgun in locations in which the carry of concealed weapons is generally prohibited, except that he or she may not carry a concealed weapon into any courtroom during a judicial proceeding, any place of nuisance. So any place of nuisance is any place that looks like guns shouldn't be. I always say the trap house that has a lot of foot traffic constantly coming in and out of it is typically considered a place of nuisance, so you don't want to have your firearm inside of there. But a place of nuisance could also be considered nightclubs, any place where nefarious activity is taking place. You want to be mindful of that. Any police, sheriff, highway patrol station, detention facility, jail, or prison, that is common sense. That's also how it reads inside of Florida. If you walk into jail or prison with a firearm, you're staying the night. Don't call anybody. You deserve it. That is the stupidest decision you could ever make in your life. You have a one-way ticket to a new bed. Preemption, yes, states have local states have preemption in Mississippi, so local municipalities, local governments can regulate the discharge of firearms and the carrying of them inside of different areas within their county and among their governing body. Brandishing, there's no definition of brandishing. If any person having, carrying, drink, knife, sword, cane, or deadly weapon shall, in the presence of another, brandish or wield in the same threatening manner, not in necessary of self-defense, or shall in any manner unlawfully use the same in any fight or equal or quarrel, they shall be guilty of a deadly weapon offense. So in Mississippi, they don't take it to just disorderly. Like I think Georgia was a disorderly conduct. Florida's improper exhibition. That's what they're going to charge you with. In Mississippi, they're going to hit you with, you're guilty of a deadly weapon offense. So improper exhibition of a deadly weapon is probably what they're going to give you with. I have to go and look it up specifically, but that's more than likely what the charge will sound like: improper exhibition of a deadly weapon or introduction of a deadly weapon into while in a quarrel and disorderly, something like that. Minimum age, we've gone through that. There's no permit to purchase. Background checks for private sales are a negative. If you have your Mississippi license, you are exempt from background checks. So I will say, I guess there are, especially if you live in the state of Mississippi, there are different instances where getting your license may be beneficial because, like we were just saying on the no weapons allowed sign, so it's enforced when you don't have a permit. But if you do have the enhanced carry permit in Mississippi, you're allowed to go to places that would normally prohibit you. You just can't go to official government buildings, courtrooms, places of nuisance, which is not a government building. It's just kind of places that firearms shouldn't be. And they actually define as places where lewdness or prostitution is conducted or permitted, or where controlled substances are unlawfully possessed, sold, or delivered more than once. So again, the trap house that has foot traffic constantly coming in and out is considered a place of nuisance, and that's the best example I could give you. Mississippi permit exempts. What's up, Victor? Good to see you again if you're still in the chat. Permanent waiting period. There's no waiting period. Handgun registration. There's no registration in Mississippi. Possession of a handgun on private property without a permit. Yes, if you're 18, you can open carry on private property. You don't need anything for that. I appreciate all three people that are in the chat on on TikTok right now. Thanks for hanging in with me. We're about an hour in, and I don't really let these go over like an hour and 30. So what state did I say we were going to do next? Let's do a little bit of a contrast, and let's go to West Virginia, because I have not looked up these state laws yet. So this will be new information to all of us right now. After Virginia, I'll take a couple questions if y'all got them, and if not, I will see y'all again at 7:30. At 7:30, I'm either going to I might do like a gaming type of stream where I play Call of Duty and answer some firearms questions too. And I'll try to make my setup in Call of Duty exactly as I would run it in person and see how well I could do. I'm probably going to do trash because most of the people in there are like modded up and have all kind of extras by now. But I like to run it as closely as I would inside of a real life situation. So for West Virginia, shall issue. Every state is shall issue. Licenses are issued on a county level by the sheriff's office. I don't know if I really like when licenses are issued by the sheriff's office. Granted, it gives the sheriffs an opportunity to know who has a gun in their county and not, but I think I actually prefer it be done through a higher entity like Department of Ag, Department of Safety, or something like that. There's no permit or background checks or waiting period for firearm registration when buying a handgun from a private individual in West Virginia. West Virginia is permitless and open carry. It is legal with no requirement to have a license to carry a firearm, provided that the person is at least 18 years old and legally entitled to have a firearm under the state and federal law. Some areas are off limits. Schools and courthouses are always the places. To conceal without a license, the person must be a U.S. citizen or legal resident of the U.S. That is at least 21 years of age or older and is legally entitled to have a firearm under the state or federal law. If 18 to 20-year-old wishes to conceal carry with, they would require a provisional concealed carry. They require a provisional concealed handgun license. West Virginia CHL are issued to residents and members of the military permanently posted in West Virginia as of July 6, 2021. So we saw, after 2020, we saw a big push of states going permitless carry, allowing open carry, and just opening up their gun laws a whole lot more. I don't know what that really says about the state and where America's going, besides the fact that more states want their citizens to actually be armed to be ready to defend themselves if they need to be. But we've seen a large push for permitless and open carry, even constitutional carry, with states changing over the last 3 years now. CHL requires firearms training courses in handling and firing a handgun in terms of reciprocity. West Virginia honors all out-of-state concealed carry permits. I'm liking West Virginia. I like West Virginia better than I like Virginia. Virginia gun laws they're kind of trash. I did a video on that one to go see West Virginia, go there. I have a CCW in Virginia. What would I need to go into Baltimore, New York, etc.? We can bounce over there real quick, and then I'll come back to West Virginia just to do a comparison. I do know in Baltimore, they have a restriction for Baltimore. And I don't know why they have an exact restriction against Baltimore, but I got to find where that part of the statute is. But let me try to read it again. What would I need to go into Baltimore, New York? You don't go into New York with a firearm. Well, that answers that off the rip. You don't go into New York. New York, the state, maybe. I have to read them because I'm not caught up on them. But if you're talking New York City, it is a hard negative. You don't want to go inside New York City with a firearm. I was going over these laws yesterday. Do I need another CCW? Yes, to be in New York, you will need the New York pistol carry license in order to have a firearm there. When it comes to New York, like when you're passing through, you have to go straight through. You're not allowed to stop. If you stop, you are breaking the law. And if an officer pulls you over and they find that you have a concealed carry on you, more than likely they will give you the first warning and just say, hey, you're not allowed to make the stop. Keep going. That is the best case scenario. The worst case scenario is they hit you with a ticket or jail time, depending on what the penalty is for breaking that statute. But yeah, New York is one of those places where you don't be caught with the firearm inside of it, because it is not going to be a good thing. When it comes to Baltimore, I got to try to find where it talks about Baltimore in the statute, but I know it was mentioned recently. And again, if I don't find it here and I'm taking too long, just go to my page and click on the West Virginia video, and then I'm pretty sure I talk about it there. But again, I could be wrong. It's somewhere in here, but I got to comb through a lot of this to find it. This is going to sound stupid, but I'm terrible at geography. What state is Baltimore in? Is it in Virginia or is it in New Jersey? Like, I know Baltimore's it's in Maryland, isn't it? What state is Baltimore in? I know it probably sounds stupid to me. You're like, oh, you don't know where Baltimore is? Bro, I suck at geography. I don't know where a lot of places are on the map. I got to do more traveling and get myself more well-versed with it. Maryland. That's what I kind of thought. I thought it was somewhere up there. So let's go to MD real quick. Oh, they only talked about it for chemical spray. So in order to purchase pepper spray in Baltimore, you must be at least 18 years of age or older and not be convicted. So they only mentioned pepper spray. I knew it was mentioned somewhere. Since Baltimore is in Maryland, let me see, in terms of reciprocity, you do not have reciprocity with New York. New York doesn't honor any other state's license. So no matter what you do, you need the New York license. They don't honor anybody else's. So if you're going through New York, I'll go to New York, the state, and not New York City. So for New York State, you do have more reciprocity. Like, it looks like we do have some reciprocity with New York State in terms of their concealed carry license here. Does Florida have reciprocity? So the Florida permit doesn't have reciprocity in New York, the state, but New York State permit has reciprocity here, but that's because we're permitless carry. So if I'm just looking at some, I'm going to go to the key state laws to try to summarize it real quick. New York State, no duty to inform. It's not linked. There's no weapon allowed. Signs are not enforced. Red flag laws are a thing. They don't have a definition of brandishing, but they do have criteria under it. Waiting periods, minimum age, permit to purchase, yes, for handguns, not for long guns. Background checks, private sales, yes, but private sales need to go through a background check. And having a license is not exempt you from the background check there. Handgun purchase permit process before taking possession. Oh, I gotta make sure I go to the comments. I don't know if anybody said anything there. So for New York State, it's looking like they have a castle doctrine. New York State does not honor anybody else's permits, but we do honor a lot of states who are moving to permitless carry will honor a New York resident that has a valid license, whether it's an ID card or a driver's license. They can come to, example, Florida, Mississippi, Kentucky, and they are allowed to carry a firearm there. But we cannot go to New York and carry a firearm. So if you're in New York City or you're in if you're in Maryland, we don't honor it. But again, we are permitless carry, so we don't need to honor it. You can come here and carry. What state was I just doing? I was doing West Virginia. Let's finish up on West Virginia, and then I'll take some more questions before we log out today. And again, we're gonna hop back on at like 7:30. Boom, 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 boom. Carry at roadside stops. Yes, you're allowed to do that inside of West Virginia. Let's go to their self-defense section. Let's see what their use of laws are there. Permitless carry, reciprocity. We just talked about that. A person not engaged in unlawful activity who is attacked in any place he or she has a legal right to be outside of his or her home or residence may use reasonable or proportionate force against an intruder or attacker, provided the person reasonably believes that he or she or another is in immediate danger of death or serious bodily harm, from which he or she or another can only be saved by the use of deadly force against the intruder or attacker. West Virginia is a castle doctrine. They have stand your ground, and there is no duty to retreat as long as you have a right to be where you are. You're not breaking any laws. You can protect yourself and defend yourself against immediate danger of death or serious bodily harm. When it comes to use of force within the home or other residence, a lawful occupant within a home or other place of residence is justified in using reasonable and proportionate force, including deadly force against an intruder or attacker to prevent a forcible entry into the home or residence or to terminate the intruder or attacker's unlawful entry. That is if the occupant reasonably apprehends that the intruder or attacker may kill or inflict serious bodily harm upon the occupant or others in the home or resident, or if the occupant reasonably believes that the intruder or attacker intends to commit a felony in the home or residence, and an occupant reasonably believes that deadly force is necessary. For a second, I almost thought that West Virginia was asking that you apprehend the suspect in the home. I was going to say, that's the stupidest thing. I'm not about to handcuff anybody in the home. Granted, I did just see a video, and again, this is why I need all of you to follow and drop that follow and tell your friends to follow, so I can display more content inside of these lives and make them more interactive and more educational. There was two dudes that tried to break into somebody's home, and the dude went hands-on with them. He was beating them up, and then he actually dragged one of them back in the house and they dragged one in, the other stayed out, and then he locked the door and stopped the other one from coming in. And he ID'd the guy and was just beating him, and I think he just waited for the police to come. That guy was about it. I respect the hell out of him for that, because to go hands-on with robbers is a different level of mindset that you got to be in. Going hands-on it's fun. Can't lie, it is fun to go hands-on with somebody, but it is always a dangerous situation because you don't know what they're going to do. You don't know how it's going to escalate. So I can avoid going hands-on. I would much rather mace somebody than actually getting into a physical hands-on situation with them. Mace is like the devil pissing in your face for 3 days straight. Fun fact: water, milk, and any other liquid does not help you if you're maced. It will wash the gel off of your face, but it is going to burn every time water touches it. So your best bet is to lean forward, turn your head to the side, pour the water, and let it all run off the side of your face, because if you let it run down your body, guess what? When you take a shower, your entire sternum and stomach and everything below it is going to burn. So there's a fun fact about pepper spray. It is a better way for somebody to remember you, especially if you don't want to transition them to the other side or potentially transition them to the other side. Civil immunity. So you do get civil immunity in West Virginia. I'm really digging West Virginia right now. The justified use of reasonable and proportionate force under this section constitutes a full and complete defense of civil action brought by any intruder or attacker against a person using force. I really wish Florida had some sort of civil immunity law, because like I said, for us here, just because you beat it criminally does not mean it's over. That family can still take you to court on the civil side, and the civil side is usually way more expensive than the criminal side because it's a longer process. They're wanting way more money. It's just a headache. So the fact that you can be immune civilly from liability, and then we did see a lot of times where like intruders or attackers were suing the people that they were attacking for beating them or engaging with them. Like in Georgia, I've heard about this. Attackers are suing the victims because the victims end up beating them up and the attacker lost that battle. And now they want civil something. They want civil immunity or they want civil actions and remedies for whatever they were going through. But it's like, that makes no sense as an attacker. You shouldn't be able to sue an individual you were attacking because you lost the fight. Because if you got what you wanted, you wouldn't be suing. So I do like states that have civil immunity and criminal immunity to a degree. Magazine limits, it's a negative. There are no magazine limits in West Virginia. Permitless carry is a thing. There are no ammo restrictions. Open carry is permitted for those 18. Other weapons, no, you cannot carry any other weapon under your concealed carry license other than a handgun. Tasers and stun guns are legal to purchase without a license. Chemical spray, like I was just mentioning, get yourself some pepper spray. I got some sitting right over there because I always keep a can on me. There's always one sitting in the car as well. Where did I just... Oh, so I don't know where I just saw her face pop up at. Carrying a vehicle, yes. Without a license, for a person at least 21 years of age or 18 years or older for a member of the United States Armed Forces and legally entitled to have a firearm in state law. On March 9, 2022, Governor Jim Justice signed HB 4048 into law, which permits individuals to lawfully possess loaded or uncased long guns in their vehicle. It will go into effect on March 24, 2022. So it's already been in effect for about 2 years now, going on 2 years. People ask that in Florida too. Yes, in Florida, you are allowed to carry other guns in the car besides just your pistol. The same criteria follows. It needs to be securely encased and otherwise not readily accessible. So like whenever I carry a long gun, it just stays in the bag, or I keep the magazine out of it, and that makes it not readily accessible, and that also satisfies the criteria. Florida sheriffs did do a study that basically said if there's a firearm where the ammunition is not inside of it and it is in a separate area and the firearm is in a separate area, that legally counts as not readily accessible. Therefore, you cannot charge that individual with possession of a concealed weapon or with improper storage of a weapon in Florida. So Florida sheriffs made that study. So yes, you are allowed to keep them. I ride with the long gun in my car all the time, which I guess I probably shouldn't say that, but I do. There's a long gun in my car, usually for work purposes. I always have it for work, but yeah, carry all the time, no issue. I've been pulled over with it, no issue. It's just a non-factor, really. Carrying state and national parks inside of West Virginia, yes, I am definitely getting some food after this. For all y'all in the chat, tell me what you're eating because I'm hungry and I want to know what y'all are eating. So maybe I might join you and eat something similar. Carrying bars or restaurants, yes, there's no statute making it illegal to carry inside a bar or restaurant unless posted. So we also have to see if their no gun signs are enforced. You can carry inside of hotels. It's easier to ask forgiveness than it is permission. Don't tell them if you're concealed carrying. Nobody should know if you're doing it right in the first place. Storing a vehicle in an employee parking lot. No person charged with the case, custody, or control of real property may prohibit a customer, employee, or invitee from possessing any legal owned firearm when the firearm is lawfully possessed, out of view, locked inside of the motor vehicle, in a parking lot, or when the customer, employee, or invitee is lawfully allowed to be present in the area. We would see this all the time. I don't know why people leave their guns in plain view. One, it's just the quickest way to get your car broken into. But the other things, like anytime I've worked nightlife and we've had large parking lots, like one of the things that we would do is go around cars. And there's a thing called plain view doctrine. And basically I can search your car in plain view and anything that I can see in there is fair game as long as it is visible to plain view, or the ordinary sight, should I say. It's the dumbest thing to do, because especially if you're trying to do, granted, I know everybody's like, oh, I want to be able to access it quickly, but it's like, especially when you know that there are officials, if there's armed security, if there's law enforcement around, they're more than likely going to look in your car. And if you fit a profile, because unfortunately everybody gets profiled, to the degree that you act on that profiling is a whole separate set of circumstances. But I profile everybody I pretty much see, especially when it's at night, because nighttime is when the freaks come out. That's when the bad things happen. And so if I notice that you're certain, like one night there was a guy, I saw him driving. I think it was a low key, it was probably like a beat down Pontiac or a beat down Chevy, or honestly, I think it was a Honda, just based off who it was. Like, I'm pretty sure the guy was like Puerto Rican, so I'm pretty sure he was driving a Honda. I could see he had a ski mask on. I could see he had gloves on. So the first thing I did, the moment he got out of sight and I knew he was inside the building, I'm like, we're going to check that car, because he has on a ski mask, he has on gloves, like he fit. Like, what are you doing right now? And sure enough, there were two pistols on the floor, kind of under the seat, but not completely under the seat. And so it's like, what are you planning on doing? Now I know if you come out this club and you run to your car, guess what? I'm running to that car with you, and I'm gonna meet you there. And now you're gonna have to deal with me at 10 feet of space. And most people just aren't willing to do it in that side of instance. So it's like, if you're going to do something, at least be smart about it and hide it, and don't make yourself obvious. Just if you're going to do the crime anyway, or if you're going to live that kind of lifestyle, at least be inconspicuous. Key state laws. Non-resident permitting. Yes, you can get a non-residence license inside of West Virginia. There's no duty to inform the officers. Your driver's license is not linked to your concealed carry license. So police won't know when you actually run their license, when they run your license, if you have one or not. Public access to the concealed carry registry. The issuing sheriff is required to furnish the superintendent of West Virginia State Police with a certified copy of an approved licensing application when requested. A certified list of all licensees shall be in the county, and the superintendent shall maintain a registry of all persons who have been issued concealed weapons license. That's kind of ambiguous. It doesn't say that the public has access to it, but it does say the superintendent at least has access to it. In Florida, I don't believe that the police have access to the concealed carry registry in Florida. I don't even know if there is a concealed carry registry in Florida. I'll have to bounce back and check it real quick. No weapons allowed signs are not enforced inside of West Virginia. Therefore, if an individual or if a place tells you that you're not allowed to bring your weapon in and they don't have codified statute under it, I always say no weapons allowed signs with numbers we respect. But if you don't have a number on that thing, this is just a sign. It's a rule, not law. I can break a rule. I try not to break laws, but I will break a rule. So that's just fun fact and fun knowledge to have. Preemption, yes, there are preemption, which means municipalities can regulate carrying and possession where you're allowed to carry in different counties and jurisdictions that they are over. And this includes pepper spray and other things of the such. So yes, different counties inside of West Virginia may have different laws that supersede state law and state state provisions, essentially. No red flag laws. Brandishing. They do have a definition of brandishing inside of West Virginia. Most states don't. Yes, it shall be unlawful for any person armed with a firearm or deadly weapon, whether licensed to carry the same or not to carry, brandish or use such weapon in a way, manner to cause or threaten a breach of the peace. So assume that if you brandish a weapon, I mean, I assume they're probably going to charge you with brandishing. That will be the charge. But we also see disorderly conduct, menacing, improper exhibition of a firearm. So they can at least hit you with 4 of those if they want. It's unsure what a judge would actually find and charge you with, but you fit all 3 criteria of those to be found guilty. So don't brandish your firearm inside of West Virginia. Everybody that just joined the chat, I appreciate y'all deeply. Make sure you give me a follow so we can get closer to that 10K. Oh, it's back. Go to my page, share those videos, share them with somebody, tell them to follow so we get more out of it. Yeah, the live is struggling on other. It's probably lagging. I know it's kind of lagging on Instagram already. TikTok, y'all actually have the best view because it's not lagging there. Background checks for private gun sales, no. Minimum age to possess, 18 in West Virginia. Yes, you can possess on private property. No, there is no permit to purchase. If you have a license in West Virginia, concealed carry license, you are exempt from background checks, so there's the benefit. There's no waiting period, nor is there a handgun registration inside of West Virginia. The constitutional provision, a person has the right to keep and bear arms for the defense of self, family, home, and state, and for lawful hunting and recreational use. So that was the West Virginia gun laws. That's a lot of what they got going on. Yeah, I like West Virginia. I like West Virginia way more than I like Virginia. I used to think I would move to the DMV area. That's a hard negative now. I hate all gun laws in every one of those states, DC, Maryland, and Virginia. Sorry, your gun laws suck. If you live there, kudos, but yeah, you should probably move states to somewhere that has more gun-friendly laws. I might consider moving to West Virginia though. That seems like a much cooler place to be in. It's pretty open, pretty decent. I think I think DevGroove is actually out of West Virginia, Team Six. I'm pretty sure they're out of West Virginia, Virginia Beach. Or could somebody tell me, is Virginia Beach inside of West Virginia, or is that in Virginia? It is probably in Virginia because it doesn't look like West Virginia has access to the beach. Granted, there's a small area that I see that looks like it's connected to land, so maybe, but that's a topic for another day. All right. I'll take any questions from any of the people that are in any of the live chats on Instagram, on TikTok. If y'all got questions about reciprocity, or if you got questions about how to get your gun rights back if you've lost them or you know somebody that have lost them, excuse me, I'll answer those questions real quick before we signed off, because I actually have to go to the Department of Agriculture to handle some licensing paperwork next and then get some other things done for the day. So what's up, my man? I appreciate you from tuning in. It does mean a lot to me. Make sure you give me a follow if you already haven't. Shoot me a DM so we can connect further and I can learn a little bit more about you and answer questions that you need if you have them. And that goes for everybody. If you need, my number is on my TikTok page. So if you have questions, you can text me directly there and I will respond, or you can DM me. I will say texting me is it's an easier way to get a faster response. If you DM me, it may take me like a day or two. I will get back to you, but it may take me a little bit more time than if you text me. If you text me, the response will be fairly quickly within a few minutes or within the hour. What do you think about non-resident permitting? I mean, sure. If a state offers non-resident permitting, by all means, I like it more, especially like if we talk about in terms of Florida, because it's like the fact that we went permitless carry and we allow out-of-state residents to just come here and carry a gun as long as they are 21. It doesn't quite fit because we have so many nuances to different things in terms of use of force, deadly force, how things are done. And it greatly differs from a place like West Virginia, where, again, they have immunity, civil immunity. We don't have civil immunity here. So if you come from West Virginia and you just come here thinking that the laws are the same, there's a great chance you're going to end up catching a case and you may end up doing something that you weren't allowed to do in Florida that you're allowed to do in Virginia. But guess what? The Virginia laws do not protect you in Florida. So I like it, but I do think that out-of-state residents should take the concealed carry class in order to actually learn the laws, which, again, is partially why I'm doing these lives so often now, because more people just need the education, and, maybe good things will come out of it where I'll make some money off of it later. They'll come to Florida and book a class with me. But the education is more of the focus at this point, because more states are moving to constitutional carry, more states are moving to permitless carry, and there's nobody really doing the education and disseminating the information in a way that makes sense. So I hope I'm doing a decent job at making a lot of this make sense. Oh, shit. I did not know you could do that. I don't know if I quite like that, but we're good forward. That was kind of cool. Yeah, that just threw me off. I'm not even gonna lie. That threw me the fuck off just now. I was like, when did I put on a hat? But that was extremely funny. You actually just made my day with that, so I appreciate that a lot. Instagram, y'all should be following me on TikTok to be able to interact with me more, because Instagram lives are kind of lame and dead, but y'all are all my family still, so I'm doing it for you. Everybody else, go to Twitch and follow me there so we can get some traffic on there. But I'm gonna stick to TikTok for a while because I like the interaction on here. It's more people. It's a little bit more fun, especially because Buddy can throw a hat on me without my permission, and that was honestly really, really funny to me just now. It very much caught me off guard. Any other questions before I get out of here and go to the Department of Ag? I probably shouldn't be telling people where I'm going, but this is Florida, and it's very clear what I do on my page. So play stupid games, win stupid prizes. TikTok hack, that is funny. It reminds me of like how you see everybody doing those little stupid like AI things. I will never act like an AI robot on this thing, but I do want to get to the level where people can, drop payments and stuff like that, because that would motivate me to do more of these laws and do them longer if, you can actually make revenue out of them, especially since DeSantis kind of killed our business last summer with that permitless carry bill. And granted, I think every citizen should be allowed to carry, but it was a business for some of us and it did impact us. So this is still me giving back, because when I started this back in 2020, I wasn't making money from it, and I was still doing the laws for free. So I figured, why not just do them in live? It's a different format, a little bit more engagement, a little bit better way to interact with everybody. But yeah, so those were those 3 state laws. At 7:30, I'm either going to play a little bit of Call of Duty and try to answer gun questions. You think the gifts are monetary? Is that what they mean? Because I honestly have no idea what the gifts mean at all. I literally have no idea. I just know people can do them. I just know how to turn on live and talk. That's literally my education right now. Cool. So I'm gonna have to like look inside the TikTok backside and figure out how that works. Because I've seen people sending like eggs and different flowers and stuff like that. But again, I have no idea what that stuff means. I just see it on here and I just keep doing my thing. So I will have to check. I'm not sure either, but I'll definitely check on it after this, because that's just more education for me to know. I just know I want to get to that 10,000 followers so I can get the little TikTok thing on here. It reminds me of Woody. And Woody was one of my favorite characters growing up as a kid from Toy Story. So that is actually very funny. And the fact that I was doing West Virginia is a kind of cowboy sounding state. So that is, I appreciate the hats and the love that you're sending, my brother. That is, or sister if you are a female. I don't discriminate against gender, but I appreciate it deeply. All right, I'm going to get out of here because I already don't want to go to the Department of Ag, and I've been putting this off for too long, and I'm already technically a month behind, 2 months behind on my licensing, or at least before I should have submitted it. So I am going to get out of here. I appreciate all of you a lot. We're going to end the live on Instagram. We're going to end the live on the web